Hi, I'm Karen Bosick with Iron Sun Valley. Today we have the great privilege of being here with the newest fool. Yeah, I'm here with Scott Palmer, who is the new director of Company of Fools, which is, as you know, the best theater company in the whole state. Scott, you came over here from Oregon.
I did.
Actually, from a nationally awarded theater group that you built up in your hometown of Hillsboro.
That's correct.
What was it that lured you over to Sun Valley and Haley?
Well, I mean, you just have to walk out the door and realize what it is that lured me here. I mean, the long history of this organization, more than nearly 25 years of commitment to excellence. The combination of Company of Fools and the Sun Valley Arts Center, the beautiful environment, the incredible audiences. I mean, it's a really ideal mixture of the place, the building, the talent, the community. How could you say no? I mean, it just is such a really remarkable opportunity for me.
And you said you walked into the Liberty and you felt at home?
I did. I walked in here and I immediately fell in love. I have a thing for old theater buildings. The company that I founded in Hillsboro called Bagon, we were housed at the old Venetian Theater, which was a similarly sized, a little bit larger in terms of seats, but about the same period. We worked there for 10 years and I loved every minute of it. So yeah, the minute I walked in the Liberty, I went, oh yeah, I'm home. This feels like home.
So how did you get into theater?
I started off at a very early age. I had a whole bunch of cousins, and so we would spend summers together, and I would play records of like the Muppet Show, and I would direct them and give them all their characters. And sort of in high school, kind of found my tribe with the sort of theater dorks. The coolest kids in high school are the theater dorks. So really have been engaged in the arts from a very early age. Had tried my hand at acting for a number of years, but really I didn't like being told what to do by the director, but I also really liked telling other people what to do. So I figured I was a terrible actor, but could have actually possibly be a good director. And ended up studying how to be a theater director.
So you actually started out with a group you founded called Baggage?
Bag and Baggage. Bag and Baggage.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so when I had lived abroad, I was doing my PhD coursework in Glasgow in Scotland, founded an outdoor Shakespeare company there, had lived in New Zealand for a couple of years, and when I moved back home to Portland, realized that my hometown had grown a lot in the 10 years or so that I was gone. And there wasn't a professional theater company there. And there weren't a lot of professional theaters outside of the Portland area. And so a group of friends and I decided we were going to create a company and we would tour to small communities in suburban and rural areas that didn't have access to professional performing arts. And we would bring everything we needed with us in our bags and baggage. It's also the first time the word baggage is ever used. It's a Shakespearean invention from As You Like It. So there was a connection both to my interest in Shakespeare and the classics, as well as the fact that we were literally driving around the state with everything we needed in the back of our car. And then after a couple of years of that, we found the Venetian Theater was being refurbished, and we were invited to do a single production there. We did Steel Magnolias as our first show, and it was sold out, and the owner of the building said, how many more of these can you do? And then we were there for 10 years as the resident performing arts organization there. Yeah.
And you recently moved into a Wells Fargo bank?
We did, yes. So unfortunately, the Venetian also had a restaurant and bar, and as a result of the economic downturn, I always tell people that the two hardest businesses to keep afloat are theaters and restaurants. And so when you combine the two of them, it was kind of a miracle that the Venetian was operated for 10 years. They eventually closed down, and we were sort of homeless as a company. And so there was an old Wells Fargo bank building that had been built in the late 1940s, sitting empty on Main Street. And working with our local city government, we purchased that space, raised about $1.6 million to turn it into a very cool, state-of-the-art sort of studio theater. And that was finished, and we pushed that boulder up the hill and built this beautiful theater. And I did about a season and a half worth of work in that space, and sort of looked around and thought, I don't know, there might be some bigger dragons out there for me to slay someplace else. I don't know if there are any more hills for me to climb in Hillsborough. And that's when I heard about Company of Fools. Yeah.
Well, we're certainly glad you did.
Thank you.
Tell me about some of the plays you have done over the years. What kind of cutting-edge stuff have you worked on?
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting because one of the things that really drew me to this position was the fact that Company of Fools and Bagon Baggage really do have a very similar kind of producing history. We love the classics. We love contemporary work. So, for example, our current season at Bagon Baggage, we did an outdoor production of As You Like It, William Shakespeare's As You Like It. And then we did Death Trap, which is a show that I know Company of Fools has done. And we're doing Bell, Book, and Candle, which is a play from the 1950s by a guy named John Van Druten. He's one of the most important playwrights in American history that no one's ever heard of, an amazing guy. We're doing a brand new adaptation of Peter and called Peter Wendy, which is an adaptation of Peter Pan. And we also do contemporary work. I was just telling you earlier about a remarkable play called The Drowning Girls, which is a new work from a Canadian playwright called Beth Tomlinson, who really beautiful play about three women who all married the same man. It's based on the Brides and the Bath murders from London in the late 1860s. So yeah, it's a mix of classical and contemporary, cutting edge, and really most of my focus is really kind of on social justice and how theater can create a sense of community and really spark conversation and recognize our shared humanity. So that's really been my passion, and I'm really excited to work with this incredible team here to see what we can do in this beautiful space.
And how, for example, are you creating conversation and community with Bell, Book, and Candle? Yeah,
so Bell, Book, and Candle is a fantastic play. It's not very many people know the play, but they know Bewitched, the TV show, which was born out of the play. So Bell, Book, and Candle sort of inspired the television show Bewitched. And it's about this group of kooky witches living in New York, kind of bohemian New York in the 1950s, but they have to be very hidden about their witchcraft and about their supernatural powers. And so in order to kind of engage with our audiences, because it's the holiday season and there's these witches and, it's a fun, engaging show. It all has some heart to it as well. We invited a group of sort of non-traditional religious practitioners from throughout Portland to come and visit with our audiences to talk about Buddhism or about being a Muslim or being a Sikh, sort of non-traditional kind of non-Christian denominations who live and work and raise their kids and go to school all in our own community. It's a great opportunity for people to be in a dark room and watch a show together and then talk with people who aren't like them to really kind of get to understand your neighbors, even if they're not exactly like you. So those are just some of the ways that Bagon Baggage really kind of digs into those conversations around creating community and recognition of who we are as a community together.
And I understand you did a very special adaptation. You adapted
Romeo and Juliet.
You did?
Yes. I have a history of playing pretty fast and loose with Shakespeare. It's not to everyone's taste, but yes, 2 years ago we did an adaptation of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet and combined it with a 12th century poem, Muslim poem, by one of the greatest writers in the history of the Middle East, Nizami Ganjavi. He wrote an epic poem called Layla and Majnun, which is essentially the story of Romeo and Juliet. Star-crossed lovers, feuding families, parents who don't want their kids to date, all of that stuff. Beautiful, beautiful poem, really remarkable piece of work. And so we sort of combined the two together, Romeo and Juliet and Layla Majnun, into a single show, using both Shakespeare and Nizami Ganjavi's poetry. A really fascinating opportunity for our community to talk about Muslim literature. That's not something people really know a lot about. There are these really fantastic poets, right? Ganjavi is the Shakespeare of the Muslim world. And we don't really have an opportunity to ever get to know that kind of cultural expression from the Middle East. So it was a great opportunity for sort of American audiences, Western audiences to learn about Nizami Ganjavi, but also is a great opportunity for members of the Muslim community and Middle Easterners from around the Portland area to see their own stories told on stage, to have some representation of their stories in theater, which was great fun, and it was a wonderful show, really remarkable experience.
Now, Scott, I remember reading a review about you that called you the most ambitious director in Oregon,
Yeah,
if not the nation.
Yes.
Expound on that for me.
Well, I don't know what that reviewer meant. I have no idea. I mean, I think, I have a pretty deep connection to advocacy for theaters, particularly theaters in suburban and rural areas. I believe really strongly that theaters, great, really fantastic, high-quality art shouldn't be condensed in the downtown urban core. Chicago and Seattle and San Francisco and Boston are all great theater towns, but so is Haley, Idaho. So is Hillsboro, Oregon. So is, Millard, Nebraska. There is no reason that people who choose to live 6,500 feet in the Sawtooth Mountains shouldn't have access to the highest quality work that people who decide to live in Chicago. So I have some ambition for communities like Hillsboro or like Haley to really bring world-class theater to, or in this case, continue bringing world-class theater to these communities and really advocate for that across the country to tell people, look, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, one of the things we often forget is geography, right? So don't forget that people who live in Sun Valley or in Blaine County, just because they choose to live here doesn't mean they should be denied access to life-changing theater experiences. So I think that's probably what the reviewer was talking about, although I don't know for sure. I could ask him.
And you do serve on a couple of national theater boards too, right?
Well, I do, sort of. I mean, I'm a member of TCG, obviously, the Theater Communications Group. Bagon Baggage and Company of Fools are both members of TCG. And yeah, in 2017, I was really honored to be inducted into the National Theater Conference, which is a small group of theater leaders and academics and directors and artists from across the country who really kind of get together in New York once a year and talk about the sort of state of the national theater industry and talk a lot about cultural policy. I'm a little bit of a dork when it comes to cultural policy. I love theater and I love directing, but I also love to talk about how the public sector and how tax law or tourism promotion, how all of those things can really help to grow the cultural industries. So that's a great opportunity at the National Theater Conference to meet with some very smart people from across the country who really want to see theater grow and thrive.
What is the state of theater today?
I think it's good. I mean, I think theater is doing well. I think, as is probably not surprising, the National Endowment for the Arts and funding for the arts is under threat all across the country. We're finding that corporate sponsorships are declining, but what we're also seeing is that individual donors are giving more because they really are beginning to understand, and they always have. They have understood. People have always understood the value that theater brings to a community. I think as we look across, particularly the West, there is an explosion of new talent, young people of color, women, female playwrights, really a remarkable time, particularly in the West, for stories that are deeply rooted here. I often say, why should we always be producing shows that were born in, developed, and are about New York? Right? We should focus out here. We have our own interesting lives stories and our own interesting challenges out here in the West, and let's sort of turn our attention to how we can tell our own stories out here. I love New York, don't get me wrong. I love those great plays, but there are also stories to be told out here as well.
I understand another thing you do love is the idea of the Big Idea Project at the Sun Valley Center for the Arts.
I love that.
And if people do not know what that's about, Kristen Poole kind of started it. You take a big idea and you interpret it through visual art, theater, music, the whole gamut.
Yeah.
Why do you love that so much?
Oh, I said to Kristen when on my first interview, my first phone interview with the team at the center, I said, if you don't give me this job, I'm just going to steal this idea and not give you credit for it. I love it so much. I mean, it really is such a clever and very useful concept, which is to say, let's ask a question. How about everybody in the community think about this one issue? I mean, when I read that there was a big idea about bees and that Company of Fools commissioned an original play to address that, I thought, this is amazing, right? This is such a great idea. The most recent big idea around protest, which I thought was fascinating, and to combine that with the with the visual arts and with performances and with music and conversations in schools and Woody Guthrie, right? It just, the sort of weaving all of those things together allows people an opportunity to think about big questions through the frame of the arts, which I think really is the art's job. So I love it. I'm really excited to work with Kristen and with everyone at the center to not only have my own big ideas come forward, but also to figure out how the theater can respond to those in interesting and challenging ways. Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Are there a couple big questions you're going to be throwing in the pot?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I had a long conversation with Kristen Poole and was saying, I think there are questions that I'd like to see where we talk about things like building, right? What is the heritage of the West, the history of the West around expansion and building? And in Idaho especially, there's some really fascinating architects and really big architectural challenges. We've got the Cooley Dam and all these really amazing structures all over the West that I think could be a really fascinating exploration about our kind of unique history and our unique character. I'm also really interested. I know there have been discussions around looking at the history of women in politics or women in science, which I think is a really fascinating possible topic and question that the theater can really easily kind of expand and examine in interesting ways. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's any big idea is a great idea. Let's talk about them all, right? Let's just go through them as quickly as we can and keep having great conversations. I love it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, I understand that your dad was born in Burley.
He was.
You came here often to visit your grandmother in Twin Falls.
That's correct.
But you'd never been to Sun Valley
Never
before
been to Sun Valley.
you came here.
That's correct. So yes, my dad and his twin brother both were born in Burley, Idaho, and then they went to high school at Twin Falls High School. They both worked for Albertsons. I know that's a very old school Idaho heritage there. So yeah, my brother and I and my mom and dad would come over all during the summers to visit my grandmother in Twin Falls, which was great fun. So I'm familiar, I've been around this neck of the woods, but not quite this high up.
Okay.
And of course, everybody has heard of Sun Valley and the incredible skiing, and it's so beautiful, and the summer activities. But I'd never been here before. And yeah, the first sort of 4 hours after I got here, I was a little bit altitude sickness. I had a little bit of dizziness. And it is also much drier than Portland, although almost every place in the world is drier than Portland. So getting acclimated to it is going to take a little time, but it is just the most beautiful place. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Well, I can't wait till you have some time to get out and see Sun Valley.
Me too.
You are going to be blown away.
Thank you. I'm excited.
We can't wait and see what you have in store for us. So
Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us,
My pleasure,
Scott,
and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us, too. I'm Karen Bosick with Eye on Sun Valley. Until next time, I'm keeping my eye on Sun Valley for you.
Eye on Sun Valley, daily local news from beautiful Sun Valley, Idaho.
The most exciting part about making custom jewelry is giving them something that's exactly what they described. I've drawn it on paper, and now it's a three-dimensional piece, and it's a finished piece, and it has diamonds or sapphires or whatever the stone might be. It's what was their envisioned piece of jewelry, and I get to complete that for them. but I get to fulfill their dreams by building what they want. So we truly are thankful for the business that we have locally and appreciate our customers and want to thank our customers for doing business with us over the last 20 years.
No matter your taste or personal style, the shopping in Sun Valley has what you need for a day in the mountains or elegant night on the town. From bike sales, rentals, repair, outdoor accessories, and souvenirs to high-end, on-trend fashion and sportwear, including a hip, modern women's boutique, there is something for everyone in the Sun Valley Village. Don't forget about the kids, as stepping foot in the toy store is a dream come true for the little ones. The Sun Valley Village shopping options blend a touch of European style with Main Street USA hospitality, all in a charming mountain town setting.